Good morning, my name's Trevor Bottomley of T-Box Music, and today I'd like to talk to you about how to calculate key signatures with the circle of keys. Circle of keys is a musical device which allows us to calculate several musical aspects, but today we will explain an important issue of the circle, and that is how to calculate key signatures. The circle of keys is called thus because it is a musical device that gives us valuable indication to several aspects of music, which lends itself to following a circle of events that are very relevant to the understanding of important music theory. It is also called the circle of fifths or the circle of fourths. It can be an indicator for primary and secondary chords, how to calculate major and minor scales, the order of sharps and flats, to name but a few. But today we're going to address how to calculate key signatures using the circle of keys. So let's start at the beginning. That's with the circle. There we are, just a straightforward ordinary circle. Now let's add all the keys to that circle. Up at the top, 12 o'clock, we've got the key of C. 5 past 12 we have the key of G. 10 past 12 we have the key of D. 1/4 past 12 we have the key of A. 20 past 12 we have the key of E. 25 past 12 we have the key of B or C flat. Now this is what we call an enharmonic situation, where the note names are different but the sound is the same. So in other words, if you play B, you're also playing C flat and vice versa, but we'll go into that further in a later lesson. Down at the bottom at 12:30 we have F sharp and G flat, which again is an enharmonic situation. The blowing arrow indicates that all these keys are going round in a clockwise direction, and if we count the notes between C and G, including C and G, we will see that there are 5 notes between C and G. Likewise 5 notes between G and D, D and A and E, so on and so forth. So with it being 5 notes, this is called what we call an interval, which is a perfect fifth. And perfect fifths, they all go clockwise, in the clockwise direction. Now on the other side of the circle, at 5 to 12 we have the key of F. 10 to 12 we have the key of B flat. 1/4 to 12 we have the key of E flat. 20 to 12 we have the key of A flat, and 25 to 12 we have the key of C sharp and D flat, another enharmonic situation. This time, as the green arrow indicates, these all go around opposite to fifths in an anti-clockwise direction, and if we count the notes from C to F, including C and F, we will note that there are 4 notes between C and F, 4 notes between F and B flat, 4 notes between B flat and E flat, and so on around the circle in the anti-clockwise direction. These are called fourths, and they go around, as we said before, in an anti-clockwise direction. In this graphic we show the circle of keys with all the key signatures by the side of the corresponding key signature names. And up at the top there at 12 o'clock we have the key of C. Now we call this the natural key because there are no sharps or flats within that key. Stepping down 1 step we have the key of G with 1 sharp, which is F sharp, D with 2 sharps, which is F sharp and C sharp, A with 3 sharps, which is F sharp, C sharp and G sharp, and so on and so forth all the way around the circle. If we note the items going around the circle in the clockwise direction, starting with the key of C at the top, this key signature is called a natural key as it is no sharps or flats. The next key to C is G. If we count the notes from C to G, we will see that there are 5 notes between C and G, including the first and last notes, which are C, D, E, F and G. Now if you look at the graphic of the keyboard below, you'll see all those notes marked out in blue, and if you count them up you'll see there's 5. This is called an interval and is known as the perfect fifth. The The same principle applies to the rest of the keys going clockwise. D is 5 steps away from G, G, A, B, C and D, and so on and so forth all the way around the circle. How do we then calculate key signatures? Let's calculate the sharp key signatures first. This means we have to travel around the circle in the clockwise direction, starting with G. G is 1 space away from C. That 1 space represents 1 sharp, as shown in the key signature next to G. D is 2 spaces away from C, which means that there are 2 sharps in the key of D. E is 4 spaces away from C, so 4 spaces represent 4 sharps, as shown in the key signature next to E. This principle follows all the way around the circle in a clockwise direction. Now we will calculate the flat key signatures. When we calculated the sharp key signatures, we travelled around the circle in a clockwise direction. This time, to calculate flats, we travel around the other side of the circle in an anti-clockwise direction. Apart from travelling clockwise, we apply the same technique for calculating sharps as we do for the flats. F is 1 space away from C, therefore 1 space represents 1 flat. To take another example, A flat is 4 spaces away from C, therefore 4 spaces represents 4 flats. If we follow each key signature around the circle, left or right, the same principle applies. However many spaces from C represents the number of sharps or flats. Now we come to the order of sharps and flats in key signatures. We know how to calculate how many sharps and flats there are in the different key signatures, but how do we determine which sharps and flats we use if we don't have the key signatures shown, as in the last slide? To calculate how many sharps or flats we require for the different key signatures, we use what is called the order of sharps and flats. And as the phrase suggests, there is an order in which the sharps and flats fall. The order is as follows. The order of sharps is F, C, G, D, A, E and B. The order of flats is the exact opposite of sharps, B, E, A, D, G, C and F. It helps to use a mnemonic to remember these orders, such as sharps. Fast cars give drivers an exotic buzz. Fast representing F, C representing cars, G representing give, etc, etc. And for flats, we have the mnemonic, bring every aging dad good codfish. And as an aging dad, I really appreciate being brought good codfish. Now we know the order of sharps, we can calculate the key signatures from the circle of keys. If we consider the key of, say, A, we count down the circle clockwise from C. We are 3 spaces away from C, which represents 3 sharps. So if we then turn to our order of sharps, we'll calculate this from our mnemonic, fast cars give, representing F, C and G, are the sharps required in the key signature for A. For the flats, the principle is the same. If we consider the key of B flat, we count down anti-clockwise from C, which is 2 spaces away from C, which means that there are 2 flats in the key of B flat. Again, we can turn to the order of sharps and flats, this time for the flats, and we'll calculate thus. From our mnemonic, bring every B and E, which is B flat and E flat, are the flats required for the key of B flat. We hope this tutorial has given you the knowledge of how to work out key signatures from the circle of keys. In future lessons we hope to talk about how to calculate major and minor scales from the circle. Also we can discuss how the key names represent chords and what their relationships are to one another. For example, primary and secondary chords, dominant 7th resolutions, and go further into intervals, 4ths and 5ths, which we touched on in this lesson. In the meantime, happy piano playing.